The neighborhood of Foxglove Ridge looked like a postcard. White fences, manicured lawns, American flags tucked neatly under porch lights. But behind those smiling mailboxes and Sunday potlucks lurked something far less charming and HOA. President, named Karen Delaney, and her clipboard. No one crossed her. Until Logan Reyes moved in. Logan wasn't loud. He didn't throw parties. He didn't even park crooked. But he did hang an American flag outside his porch larger than the HOA-approved dimensions by exactly 3 inches. On his second day in the neighborhood, Karen arrived. No knock. Just the sound of her heels tapping on his driveway like a countdown. She stood 5'6", with a pink visor, a tight polo shirt, and an expression carved out of lemon rind. The clipboard was cradled in her arm like a newborn. She scribbled something, then shoved a notice under his welcome mat. Violation number 14. Unapproved flag display. Correct within 24 hours or be fined. Logan read the slip and folded it once, then again. He didn't sigh. He didn't argue. He just tossed it into his kitchen drawer next to his deployment medals and moved on. But Maya, his 17-year-old daughter, saw everything from her bedroom window and quietly began recording. The next morning, the flag was gone, replaced by a smiley face chalk spray that read non-compliant across the lawn. Maya gasped. Logan stood in silence, watching the message dry under the rising sun. At noon, Karen passed by walking her little designer dog, Colonel Puddles. She didn't look at Logan. She didn't have to. That evening, Logan said nothing to his daughter, but she noticed he didn't touch his dinner. The day after, Maya installed a small camera inside one of the garden lights, aimed at the driveway. She didn't tell her father. Not yet. She called it insurance. 3 nights later, it paid off. Through grainy black and white footage, Karen was seen crouching in the middle of the night, wearing gloves and using a tape measure along their hedge. She wrote something in her notebook, smiled, and walked off. Maya edited the video into a 30-second clip and played it for Logan the next morning. He watched it twice, still without speaking. Then, finally, he leaned back in his chair. He asked her one question. Do we still have that old GoPro? She grinned. The one I put on the drone. Fully charged. Logan gave a slow nod, like something was beginning to turn in his mind a calculation. Maya didn't know what he was planning, but she could see the switch flip. He wasn't mad. That was the scary part. That same day, a second notice appeared. Violation number 26, excessively aggressive eye contact during board president's morning walk. Warning issued. At this point, even Tommy Brewster, the HOA's jittery vice president, looked embarrassed delivering it. Logan thanked him kindly and handed him a lemonade. Tommy hesitated before sipping. He glanced around like someone might be watching. Then he leaned in. She wants you out before the vote. Tommy whispered. She's afraid. Logan tilted his head. Afraid of what? Tommy wiped his brow. Of what happens if someone like you actually starts paying attention. That night, Logan cleaned off his porch, cleared the lens on the camera Maya installed, moved the flag to the garage for now, and sat on the front steps with a quiet smile. He wasn't going to fight Karen. Not yet. Because when someone like Logan fights, it isn't loud. It isn't public. It's precise, surgical, and very, very fast. Just ask anyone who's ever crossed a Navy SEAL. Clock had started ticking. The only question now was whether Karen would notice. Before it ran out, 3 days after the eye contact. Warning, Logan Reyes found a third notice tucked into the bushes, damp from the sprinklers. This time, it read like something out of a bad sitcom. Violation number 342. Residents' overall demeanor perceived. as intimidating. Subject presents a threatening posture during morning HOA rounds. There was no code number 342. Maya checked the HOA bylaws twice. Karen had made it up. It was the first time. Logan cracked a smile, but not for long. That evening, Karen arrived again. No dog, just her clipboard and her smirk. She didn't speak to Logan, only waved to her neighborhood watch. 3 lawn chair ladies armed with binoculars and lemonade. They whispered like a jury. Then something strange happened. Logan's security lights, newly installed, flickered. Once, then off. When he checked the fuse box, someone had zip-tied the latch shut. Not broken, just tampered with deliberately and quietly. Logan didn't get angry. Instead, he pulled out a box from the hall closet. Inside, 3 cameras, a motion sensor, a solar-powered perimeter light, and a custom-configured device he once used on a Somali coastline to detect nighttime movement. By sundown, Logan's house was a fortress only no one could tell. Everything was invisible to the eye, silent, hidden in birdhouses, behind gutters, beneath mulch. Maya, watching from the window, finally asked the question she'd been holding back. "You're really doing it now?" Logan didn't look up from the wiring. "I'm just watching my 6. Later that night, Maya reviewed the lawn gnome footage again. She froze the frame on Karen's face, bent over, whispering to Tommy as they pointed toward Logan's truck. Tommy looked uncomfortable. He scratched his neck, then nodded. The next morning, Logan's F-150 was gone. A tow notice had been filed, according to Karen. Logan had allegedly parked in reverse, which according to Section 7B of the HOA Code was non-conforming. Maya caught the entire tow on camera. Logan called no one. Instead, he walked 3 blocks down to the impound lot. He returned 30 minutes later in his truck, completely calm. When Maya asked how he got it out so fast, he only said, "I knew the guy working." What Logan didn't say, the man at the lot was a former Navy corpsman who owed him a favor. The next violation came less than 12 hours later. It was handwritten. Subject refuses to engage with the HOA in good faith. Possible sabotage of communal relations. Recommendation. Escalation. The paper smelled faintly of lavender. Karen had scented it. That night, Tommy Brewster returned. This time, he knocked. His hands were shaking when Logan opened the door. "I don't like this anymore," he whispered. Logan invited him inside. Maya listened from the hallway, recording. Just in case, Tommy confessed Karen was planning to formally charge Logan with creating a hostile environment at the next board meeting, an offense that, if approved, would force him into arbitration or even eviction. The whole thing was being dressed up in legalese to look legit. But the board was cracking. "She made Mrs. Hargrove cry over a yard gnome," Tommy said. "She's been out of control for months. And now," Logan asked. Tommy looked down. "Now she's scared." "Of what?" "You," he whispered. "Not because of what you've done, because of what she thinks you could do." Logan paused, then stood. He handed Tommy a folder, thick, organized, labeled with timestamps and bylaw references. Inside were all the violations Karen had issued and footage contradicting nearly everyone. "I don't need to scare her," Logan said. "I just need to be patient." That night, Maya uploaded a private video to the cloud. Title, Karen Watch, Day for Dot in the thumbnail. Karen stood with her clipboard, caught mid-scream in night vision, a flash of panic in her eyes. The camera had picked up her yelling into a neighbor's yard about Logan weaponizing silence. The house across the street had turned off their porch light the moment she stepped onto the lawn. The neighborhood was starting to see it. They weren't siding with Logan. Not yet. But they were looking at Karen differently now. Quieter, cautious, and Logan, he was just getting started. Logan Reyes made the call just before dawn. No words. Just a short message left on a voicemail that didn't greet with a name. Only silence. Need ice. Need calm. Bring the thermals. He hung up and poured himself a black coffee. Maya watched. From the hallway, still wearing her hoodie from last night's late editing session. She didn't ask who he called. She could guess. It wasn't panic in her eyes. It was curiosity. Her father rarely brought people into things. If he was reaching out now, it meant he wasn't playing defense anymore. At exactly 6:32 a.m., a black SUV with tinted windows rolled silently into the neighborhood. No music. No exhaust rumble. Just the soft thud of boots hitting pavement. The man who stepped out looked like he'd been carved out of asphalt and bad decisions. Bald, bearded, and covered in tattoos that peeked out from under a black long-sleeve compression shirt. He carried a tactical duffel with one hand and a grocery bag in the other. Brought eggs. He said flatly. Didn't know what stage of war this was. Logan opened the door and let him in without a word. Maya peeked around the kitchen corner. That Mac? Mac glanced her way. She's tall for 17. She's nosy, Logan replied. Mac grunted. Good. Nosy people. Survive. They ate breakfast in silence. Maya's fork paused mid-bite when Logan laid out a map of the neighborhood on the table and began placing small red dots along key points, fence lines, the community park, the whole office shed. What is this? She asked. Pressure points. Mac answered. Every structure has weaknesses, even Karen. Logan added a blue dot. This one's a neighbor named Mrs. Dunn. Karen berated her in public over a Halloween skeleton in April. She's ready to talk. Maya nodded slowly. You're building a case. No, Logan said. I'm building a pattern. Karen was the kind of person who relied on silence from those around her. She operated in a vacuum of accountability, shielded by technicalities and compliant neighbors. But the thing about patterns, they're visible, trackable, predictable. And Logan, a man trained to track the movements of armed enemies in the dark, had already begun. Later that afternoon, Mac walked the neighborhood disguised as an out-of-town. Cousin shorts, flip-flops, world's okayest golfer hat. He didn't take pictures. He didn't speak. He simply observed. He noticed Karen's routines. The cars that parked near the HOA shed. The HOA printer jammed twice between 2 and 3 p.m. because Karen was mass printing violation forms. By sunset, Mac had memorized every inch of the street layout, and he didn't even live there. Inside the Reyes household, Maya reviewed footage of Karen arguing with Tommy near the HOA mailbox. She froze the frame again. Tommy was holding something. A folder. She enhanced the image. Dad, is that ours? Logan leaned in. It was. The same folder he gave Tommy, now gripped tightly as Karen shouted in his face. Her expression wasn't just angry. It was worried. Tommy hadn't folded. Not yet. But he had hesitated, and Karen knew it. The next morning, the Reyes security sign was spray-painted with the words, "Not above the law." The handwriting was shaky. Logan didn't react. He simply removed the sign, replaced it with a fresh one, and added a second camera inside a nearby wind chime. He also adjusted the positioning of the gnome cam, now tilted to catch the path leading from Karen's house to his. Then he waited. But Mac didn't. He handed Logan a USB drive. What's this? Maya asked. Compilation, Mac said. Body language analysis, drone feeds, Karen's movement timeline. I used to profile warlords. HOA dictators are slower, but more erratic. Logan slid the USB into a secure laptop and clicked open. File. On the screen were labeled segments, aggression pattern, Thursdays, 9 a.m. Peak confrontation time, 4:15 to 4:45 p.m. Violation prints spiked. HOA printer logs show excess paper use Friday evenings. It wasn't just surveillance. It was psychological warfare. And Karen had no idea who she'd started it with. Karen Delaney loved routines. Morning rounds at exactly 7:45, clipboard angled just so, eyes scanning lawns like radar. But on Thursday morning, her routine cracked. The first clue was Maya's drone. She'd launched it from the backyard before sunrise. It wasn't loud, just a whisper of plastic and carbon fiber slicing through the air. Karen didn't notice. It hovered 50 feet above her red Prius as she marched down Azalea Lane. Maya, in her bedroom, sipped iced coffee and watched the live feed on her tablet. She zoomed in when Karen stopped by the community playground and reached into a tote bag. Out came a screwdriver. "Dad," she called, "you might want to see this." Logan didn't reply. He was already behind her, watching over her shoulder. Karen crouched beside a lamppost near the sidewalk. She opened the base panel with the screwdriver, fiddled with something inside, then quickly closed it up and looked around. No one else saw. No cars passed. But the drone saw everything. Maya hit record. Later that morning, Logan inspected the lamppost himself. Inside, the HOA's community camera wire had been cut clean and deliberate. Logan didn't touch it. Instead, he placed a small tag at the base to track if Karen came back. Back at home, Mac watched the footage and laughed under his breath. Cutting out eyes. First mistake anyone makes in an op. Never kill your own surveillance unless you know who else is watching. Maya sent the video to a private drive and titled it "Karen Disables Evidence." 6:08 a.m. Logan added it to the folder. That evening, Karen strutted into the neighborhood board meeting with a smug smile and two manila folders tucked under her arm like loaded weapons. She didn't know half the board was already beginning to shift away from her control. Tommy sat quietly, eyes down, pretending to read from his notepad. But he'd seen the footage. Logan had shown him in private the day before. Now he was just waiting. Karen stood before the 5 other board members in the rec center, speaking in clipped, legal-sounding phrases, reading directly from a printed report she'd written herself. "Mr. Reyes continues to exert what I would call psychological pressure on the community," she said. "His presence has altered the emotional climate of Foxglove Ridge. Several residents, though anonymous, have stated they feel militarized." There were no gasps, no agreement, just uncomfortable silence. Then someone coughed on purpose. It was Mrs. Dunn, usually invisible. Tonight, she raised her hand. "Karen," she said, "didn't you tell me I couldn't plant zinnias last month because they were too aggressive?" Karen blinked. "Different matter," she snapped. Mrs. Dunn didn't lower her hand. "Because the footage Logan showed me last night looked an awful lot like harassment and vandalism." Karen's fingers clenched. "You're out of order." "No," Tommy said, rising to his feet. "She's not." Everyone turned. Tommy reached into his briefcase and pulled out Logan's folder. "This is what we've been handed," he said. "Surveillance footage, logs, HOA bylaw contradictions. I didn't want to get involved, but Karen, this is overreach. And you're dragging the whole community down with you." Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. Her voice, once sharp and piercing, suddenly shrank. "I've protected this neighborhood. You've terrorized it," someone else said from the back. A neighbor. Then another chimed in. "She called my son's skateboard a rolling violation. She tried to fine me for humming too loudly." It unraveled quickly. In less than 3 minutes, Karen's credibility dissolved in whispers and quiet laughter. Her clipboard lowered. Her posture slumped. But she wasn't done. That night, as Maya reviewed the drone footage one last time, she noticed something else. A car pulling into Logan's driveway at 11:47 p.m. Someone in a hoodie, looking toward the garage. They didn't touch anything. Just stood there. Watching. Logan paused the video. Not her, he said. Then who? He didn't answer, but he slid the memory card from the drone into a metal case and locked it. The war wasn't over. Karen had lost her grip, but someone else had just stepped in. Friday night brought an eerie stillness to Foxglove Ridge. Porch lights dimmed early. Curtains were drawn, and even the usual barking from Mrs. Halverson's dachshund trio went silent. Something in the air shifted. Not fear exactly, just tension. Like the neighborhood was holding its breath. Logan Reyes felt it too. He stood barefoot on the patio, mug in hand, eyes scanning his backyard like a soldier watching a tree line. Maya was upstairs uploading the latest drone footage. Mag had left for the hardware store hours ago and hadn't returned. Not unusual unless you knew how little patience he had for shopping. At 11:58 p.m., motion sensors triggered on the west perimeter. Logan didn't flinch. The screen on his phone lit up with a quiet alert. Zone 3 breach. Movement. Slow. Low 2. Ground. One subject. He didn't need to guess who. But he watched anyway, switching to the garden cam. And there she was, Karen Delaney, crawling on her hands and knees under the moonlight like a parody of herself. Clipboard strapped to her back like a turtle shell. One hand gripped a tape measure, the other, a flashlight covered in red cellophane. Logan almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he opened the control panel on his phone and tapped twice. In the backyard, 3 subtle spotlights clicked on, soft, diffused, and focused on Karen's position. Like a theater cue, she froze, wide-eyed, squinting against the light. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood slowly, brushing leaves from her polo shirt. Logan, she hissed, trying to keep her voice down. This is illegal. Surveillance. The speakers mounted above the patio clicked on. Logan's voice came through, calm and clear. You're trespassing. The property is under recorded surveillance. Please exit through the gate. Karen's face twisted. I was inspecting the hedge is within code. Leave now. But she did in single quotes. Instead, she marched toward the back door, clipboard raised like a weapon. That's when Maya's new system kicked in. Pressure plates in the stepping stones activated the soft perimeter lockdown. Nothing aggressive. Just a sequence of pop-up fence panels and garden walls gently sliding into place, boxing her in like a chess piece trapped on all sides. Karen screamed. Not in pain, just sheer panic. Let me out. You can't do this. Logan emerged from the house, calm as ever, barefoot on the stone. He didn't raise his voice. You've made 6 attempts to tamper with my property in 10 days. You've damaged a flagpole, trespassed, cut a lamppost feed, and now you've entered my yard without cause. I have logged everything. I'm the HOA president, she yelled, pointing as if that meant something. I have the right to inspect. Logan stepped closer. Not at midnight. Not on private property. And not when you've already been warned. A sudden rustle drew both of their eyes toward the hedge. From the shadows stepped Mag back from wherever he'd gone, holding a bag of zip ties and a Bluetooth speaker. He looked from Karen to Logan. She tripped the line. Hard, Logan said. Mag set the bag down. Want me to call it in? Logan shook his head. Timer just started. Karen's expression wavered. What timer? Logan checked his watch. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. She blinked. What happens in the fence retracted? She bolted through the opening, nearly tripping over a solar light. Logan didn't stop her. Maya watched from her window. eyes wide, fingers frozen over her keyboard. Karen didn't stop running until she was safely back inside her house. Porch light on, door slammed, curtains drawn taut, and for the first time in weeks. Silence. Logan looked up at the camera and spoke quietly. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. He wasn't bragging. It was just a fact. Back inside, Mac poured himself a glass of water. What now? Logan checked his phone. She'll file something. Tomorrow. Desperation's the final stage. What if she doesn't? She will. Mac nodded. And if she isn't the biggest threat anymore, Logan paused. Then we focus on the one who showed up the night before. Saturday came like a storm that had been quietly building all week. Karen Delaney wasted no time. By 9 a.m., she had personally hand-delivered notices to every mailbox on Azalea Lane. Each envelope was sealed with a sticker bearing the HOA's outdated logo and labeled in block letters. Emergency board hearing, code violation case against Logan Reyes. No explanation. No evidence. Just a summons. Inside her house, Karen prepped her case like it was a war tribunal. Pages of notes. Photos printed at too low resolution. Sections of the HOA bylaws underlined in neon pink. She even made color-coded tabs labeled threat, non-compliant behavior, and known associates. She wore her best blazer, the same one she wore to her daughter's custody hearing. It gave her confidence. The meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. at the community center. Folding chairs, a podium, a long folding table for the board. No legal counsel, but plenty of tension. By 3:45, the room was already full. Not just board members, but nearly 20 neighbors. People who never attended HOA meetings suddenly showed up early, seated quietly, watching. Logan arrived last, dressed in a plain black t-shirt and jeans. No folder, no camera, just himself. Karen stood as he walked in, waiting for him to look her way. He did in single quotes T. At exactly 4 o'clock, Tommy Brewster opened the meeting. This session is in response to an urgent complaint filed by Board President Karen Delaney. Regarding Mr. Logan Reyes, Karen immediately took the floor, standing stiff and rehearsed. Behind the podium, her voice rang sharp, bouncing off the cheap walls of the rec center. Mr. Reyes has created an environment of intimidation, surveillance, and covert manipulation. He has weaponized privacy. He has installed military-grade equipment and refuses to comply with standard HOA decorum. I present multiple counts of behavior unbecoming of a community resident. She shuffled through her stack, unfolding a printed still of Logan's lawn gnome. Exhibit A, covert surveillance. There was an awkward pause. Then someone chuckled from the third row. Karen's eyes shot up. Excuse me? Is that the gnome with the solar light eyes? Asked Mr. West, a retiree with no filter. That thing's been there since April. My grandson helped install it. Karen faltered. She moved on. Exhibit B, trespassing accusation against me, though I maintain I was inspecting suspected code violations under subsection 8A. She held up her clipboard. I've documented 12 separate violations from the Reyes household, including posture aggression, improper flag sizing, unregistered outdoor lighting, and excessive proximity fencing. The board remained silent. Tommy adjusted his glasses and looked to Logan. Would you like to respond? Logan stood up slowly. I don't have a presentation, he said. Just facts. He reached into his back pocket and produced a small USB drive, which he handed to Maya, now seated at the edge of the room with her laptop. She plugged it in and opened a single folder labeled evidence_Karen. The projector flickered on, and then silence, clip by clip. The room watched Karen spray painting his lawn at night, shouting at neighbors, disabling the lamppost camera, trespassing, screaming during her backyard inspection. Every second time-stamped and legal. No commentary. Just footage. Tommy cleared his throat. Karen, did you disable the HOA's camera feed? That footage is out of context. You're in pajamas. Karen's face twitched. Mrs. Dunn raised her hand. You threatened to fine me for using an off-white bird bath. I was enforcing standards, and yet, Logan said calmly, you ignored Section 2C, which prohibits any board member from accessing private property without written consent or direct safety concerns. Mac, leaning near the wall, folded his arms. She skipped that page. The room laughed. Karen snapped. This is a setup. He brought in a private contractor. He's manipulating the board. Tommy finally spoke. Karen, we're voting now. They voted. 4-1. Motion passed. Karen Delaney suspended pending investigation. Her access to HOA records revoked. Clipboard confiscated. As she stormed out. Someone whispered, 2 minutes, 47 seconds. Her head jerked, but she said nothing. Outside, Karen sat alone in her Prius. Her fingers trembled as she dialed a number from memory. It's happening, she whispered. He's turning the neighborhood. A voice on the other end replied. Then maybe it's time we turn the heat back up. Sunday was too quiet. Karen's Prius hadn't moved since the night of the board meeting. Curtains drawn. No visor on the dash. No clipboard pressed against her chest during her usual power walk. It was like a ghost town radiated from her front. Porch outward, 20 feet in every direction. But Logan wasn't waiting for her to strike again. He was preparing for something else entirely. Maya and Mac worked in the backyard. String lights were going up. A massive grill was rolled into position on the patio, flanked by coolers and a foldable buffet table. The neighborhood's first freedom. Baby Q was in full setup mode. At the center of it all. Logan hammered a simple sign into the front lawn. Open invite. Foxglove Ridge residents only. Starts 6 p.m. Come hungry. Leave laughing. Neighbors trickled over throughout the day, offering to bring food, drinks, spare chairs. Even Mrs. Halverson brought her famously oversalted potato salad and asked if she could read a poem before dessert. Logan just smiled and said sure. But while the grill was heating up, Karen was inside making a call. This one wasn't to her usual allies. It was to someone named Vince. The man who answered sounded like gravel. You want me to do what? Just show up. Walk around. Remind him of who he used to be. He won't scare easy, Karen. No, she said. But I need him distracted. By 5:45, the BBQ was buzzing with laughter. Lawn chairs scattered. Across the yard, kids chasing each other with foam water blasters. And Mac manning the grill like he trained for it in a fire team. Maya's drone hovered above, catching wide shots of neighbors mingling like they hadn't in years. Logan stood in the center, apron over his black t-shirt, tongs in one hand, greeting people like he'd lived there for decades. At 6:14, a black motorcycle rumbled down the cul-de-sac and stopped across from Logan's house. Vince stepped off. Tall. Leather jacket, tattooed arms, and eyes that carried stories better left buried in sand and steel. He didn't speak as he walked toward the gathering. Max saw him first. He turned from the grill and muttered under his breath, "Ghost from the past." Logan noticed the tension. He turned slowly, setting the tongs down. Vince. Logan. Karen stood in the shadows of her front porch, watching. From behind her blinds. Her plan was simple. Trigger Logan. Push him into a confrontation. Show the neighborhood the soldier behind the smile. But Logan didn't bite. Instead, he shook Vince's hand and pointed toward the cooler. Grab a beer. We're not in the sandbox anymore. Vince raised a brow. Thought you were still the quiet type. I still am, Logan said. Just louder with the right company. Vince looked around. Karen told me you were cracking. Logan grinned. Tell her to check the scoreboard. By 7 o'clock, everyone was settled on lawn chairs and picnic blankets. That's when Maya tapped her tablet, and the projector on the fence flickered to life. A new video began to play. A compilation of Karen, no narration, no music, just clips. Her shouting at neighbors, threatening a teenager over a basketball hoop, trespassing, tampering with equipment. And finally, the night of the backyard lockdown. The crowd didn't laugh. They didn't mock. They just sat, still watching the truth unfold. When the video ended, Maya stepped up and said just one sentence. This is who's been running your neighborhood. There was a long silence. Then applause, scattered at first, then steady. At 7:14, Tommy approached. Logan, she resigned, he said. Logan raised an eyebrow. 15 minutes ago. Sent me an email with 3 words. I officially resign. Maya grinned. But Logan didn't smile. Instead, he turned toward the street. Because Karen's Prius was gone. And in its place a black SUV. No plates. Max saw it too. That's not her style. Logan nodded. No, it's not. The SUV idled for 3 full minutes. Black. No license plates. Tinted windows that didn't reflect anything except uncertainty. It was parked directly across from Logan's house. Engine humming like a question no one wanted to answer. Max stood beside Logan at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, expression locked in neutral. Maya stood behind them both, drone controller in hand, thumb hovering over the manual flight trigger. Then the SUV pulled away. No confrontation, no message, just the low growl of departure. Logan watched it until it turned the corner and disappeared behind the maple trees near Lot 47. What was that? Maya asked. Mac exhaled slowly. Surveillance. Probable intimidation. Somebody Karen called. Someone worse. Worse how? Logan didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he turned toward his home, the backyard now empty, grill cooling, neighbors gone, laughter fading. All that remained was the quiet hum of streetlights and the faint echo of something meaningful just beginning to take root. Inside, Logan opened the laptop on the kitchen counter and replayed the final 30 seconds of the resignation video frame by frame. Karen's expression, her phone call, her final look toward Logan's house. She didn't quit because she lost, he said. Maya leaned in. She quit because she got scared. No, Logan replied. She quit because she handed it off. That night, Logan took a walk, not to clear his head but to look. 5 houses, a few familiar faces, one unfamiliar man pretending to water his lawn at midnight. Logan nodded once as he passed. The man looked away. Surveillance. Subtle. Not HOA muscle corporate. Hired. By Monday. A document arrived in Logan's mailbox. No envelope. No postage. A folded letter on heavy paper stock. Plain. Except for the header. Foxglove Community Management Group. Inside was a friendly proposal to purchase Logan's home at 12% above market value, with a clause stating immediate removal from the HOA registry for harmony's sake. Logan read it twice, then a third time. Then he lit the edge of it with a match and dropped it in the backyard fire pit. By Tuesday, the board had officially voted in Tommy as interim president. By Thursday, 2 more neighbors who had voted with Karen quietly withdrew from their committee roles. The HOA, in its former form, had crumbled. But Logan knew something most of them didn't. Power doesn't vanish. It just migrates. The real twist wasn't Karen's fall. It was discovering that the HOA was just a tool, a puppet in the hands of a private developer, one who had their eye on transforming Foxglove Ridge. into a tightly controlled, high-profit community. New bylaws, short-term rentals, tight surveillance, all in the name of progress. They wanted Logan gone because he didn't just resist. He revealed. And revelations are dangerous. So Logan responded the only way he knew how. He went to work. Max set up a shell nonprofit, Neighbors First. Maya created a slick, well-produced video campaign highlighting the stories of overregulated neighborhoods, HOA abuse, and the silent rise of private land developers hiding behind residential councils. The drone footage became part of a 12-minute expose. The title? Clipboard Tyranny. How one man took back his street. It went viral in 2 days. By the end of the week, Foxglove Ridge's community website had more visitors than its local city council page. The management group backed off. Quietly. No more letters. No more SUVs. Just a silence filled with respect. On Sunday, Logan sat on the front steps. No surveillance feed. No defense grid active. Just him, a cup of coffee, and a new flag gently waving from a pole, this time perfectly HOA-sized. Maya joined him. Still watching your six? She asked. Always, he replied. But not alone. Anymore. Across the street, Mrs. Dunn waved from her garden. Tommy walked by with 2 leashed dogs and a grin that said retirement would have to wait. Even the teenager, Karen, once threatened, skateboarded by and gave Logan a respectful nod. Order had returned, but not because one man fought back. Because one neighborhood finally woke up. And Logan Reyes, he was just the guy who reminded them how. The end.